Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
डालने वाले लैपटॉप पकड़ो ठीक है बट नहीं ऑनलाइन चूज
Continue to record. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. At the outset, I would like to thank the temple management for having given me this opportunity to serve Guru, Gauranga, and the Lordships, and all of you. And I would also like to thank all of you for assembling here. And I seek all of your blessings. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So before I would start, I would like to offer my obeisances to Guru and Lord Shri Krishna, Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vacha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So I have been asked to give a summary on chapter 8 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And so chapter 8, to just concisely what actually chapter 8 deals with is how one should die. This is what it says. And how one should live to have a glorious death. So one should die gloriously. So to have such a death, one should live also in a particular way. So this is what is the highlight point of chapter 8. So chapter 8 is also known as Attaining the Supreme. So if one attains the Supreme, that is the perfection of life. That is the glory of dying, actually. So chapter 8 starts with questions by Arjuna to Lord Sri Krishna. And he asks a set of 8 questions, and for which Krishna will answer. Krishna will answer the first 7 questions briefly, but he will focus on the 8th question, the entire chapter. And so we can break down the chapter like this into roughly 5 to 6 sections. So there are 28 verses in chapter 8. The first 4 verses, we see Arjuna asking questions and Lord Krishna answering. And Lord Krishna will answer only 7 out of the 8 questions in the 3rd and 4th verse. Then from the 5th to 8.5 to 8.8, Lord Krishna will answer the answer to the 8th question of Arjuna. And so that is remembering Krishna at the time of death. The the section heading is. Then the next section is how do one remember Krishna? So how does a yogi remember Krishna? How does a devotee remember Krishna? A pure devotee remember Krishna. Then the Lord compares the material as well as the spiritual world in verses 17 to 22. Now, from verses 23 to 28, the Lord establishes the supremacy of bhakti. So, how devotional service is superior to other practices of liberation or no liberation, whatever. So, ultimately, it is a devotional service which is the topmost. So, this is how the chapter breaks down. So, Arjuna actually, so this chapter starts with Arjuna's questions. He has some. He had to clarify something because based upon what Krishna had spoken in the last 2 verses of the 7th chapter. Because if you see in the 7th chapter, the summary has already been done by Kalpataru Mataji. So in the 7th chapter, the Lord actually for the first time reveals something so confidential about him. In the 7th chapter, he talks about his supremacy and his energies. And he says, whatever is existing in the spiritual world or whatever is existing in this material world, whatever is existing is nothing but his energy and nothing exists apart from him. So this is what he says. Now, in the last 2 verses, he is actually talking about whatever he spoke till then, he just puts it in a nutshell in the last 2 verses. He talks about karma, he talks about Brahman, he talks about Adhyatma, he talks about Adhibhuta, Adhiyajna, Adhidaiva, and then a devotee also, and how a devotee dies. So these are the things that he talks. So essentially, it is himself, his energies, and the relationship, the real relationship between himself and also the other relationship that comes in the karma factor. So this is what he says. So Arjuna begins here by asking Krishna, I need some clarification because for every word that he used, it has several meanings. Like Brahman can be Brahman as well as Parabrahman. Atma can be body, soul, mind, anything. So he actually needs some clarification. So this is what he does in the first 2 verses of the 8th chapter. Arjuna is asking the questions. What are the questions he asks? He asks, what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhidaiva? What is Adhiyajna? And where does Adhiyajna reside? And how does a devotee remember Krishna at the time of death? So these are the 8 questions that he asks. Now, the Lord will actually answer. My PPT doesn't contain everything because I'm very lazy. So please forgive me for that. So the Lord answers. To Brahman, Lord says that he says Aksharam Brahma Paramam. So Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Akshara means that which never diminishes or that which never gets destroyed or perishes. So that is eternal. So Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Paramam is transcendental. So Brahman is that indestructible, transcendental living entity is Akshara, is Brahman. So it can be us. We are all Jivatmas. So we are all called Jivatma. The Lord is called Parabrahma or Paramatma. So he's a supreme Brahman and we are just Brahman. Then the next question that was asked by Arjuna was Adhyatma. What is Adhyatma? Now, when you know what is Adhyaksha, Aksha means seeing, eyes, no Akshi. So Adhyaksha means someone who watches. So he's a supervisor. Adhi means controller. So whenever he says Adhiyajna, I am the enjoyer, I am the master, I am the enjoyer of yajna. I am the enjoyer, I am the master of the devatas, I am the master of all that is manifested here. So in this is what he is telling. So what is Adhyatma? Now Adhyatma, Lord Krishna tells here, is the eternal nature of the living entity is called Adhyatma. Now the living entity can have two kinds of nature, a material nature and a spiritual nature based upon his consciousness. Because the living entity is a marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Because of the free will that is given to him, he can choose Krishna or he can choose for himself to enjoy. So if he is in the material consciousness, then his nature is sort of a material nature. But where he does that, what the next question that Arjuna asked, what is karma? So when he is in material consciousness, he will do activities that are called karma. But if he is in the spiritual consciousness, then all his activities are for the expression of the Supreme Lord. That is called akarma, or it is called devotional service. Now, when he is doing karma or for his own sense gratification, it is called a fruitive activity because he is doing an activity for expecting some result. Now, when there is an expectation, then when there is a result, then definitely it will bind him to this material existence. So according to that, he will get another body in the next life. So karma is an activity that will actually endow a spirit soul with material bodies. Then the next question was, and so what are the various bodies he can get? He can get anywhere in among the 8,400,000 species of life. So many living beings are created by the Supreme Lord, 8,400,000 species of. Now, Adhibhuta, what is Adhibhuta? Adhibhuta is all the material manifestation that is there, including our body. Now, till now, the Lord was talking about, Arjuna was asking about the Atma. But now this is Adhibhuta, means all the physical manifestations, which are manifestations of this material world. Now, material nature, one characteristic of the material nature is it goes on changing its nature. It does not have a permanent nature. Whereas a spiritual body will have, it is Satchit Ananda at all times. But material nature, even in its physical form, will not remain the same. For example, here Prabhupada says that the material body undergoes 6 types of changes. One is birth, and then grows for a while, and then it stops growing for a while, and then there are byproducts, produces, and then it dwindles, and then it vanishes. That means a baby is born at 1 month, but at 2nd month, the baby is not the same as the baby was at 1 month of age. Or the baby is, when the baby grows to become a toddler or a child, he does not have the same body as he had when he was a 1-year-old boy or an infant. An adult does not have a body that is same as when he was a child. So it goes on changing. And an old man, he does not have a body as healthy as he was when he was in his youth. So these are the 6 changes. So Adhibhuta is that eternal nature of changing of the physical body. Then the next one is Adhiyajna. Who is Adhiyajna? He asks. And the Lord says that Adhiyajna, see, there are 2 Adhiyajnas. Adhiyajna, controller of the enjoyer of yajnas. One is Indra and the other one is the Supreme Lord. But in this context, the Lord says, Adhiyajna is only me. And where am I residing? I am residing in the heart of everyone, in the body, so in the region of the heart, in every living being, as Paramatma. So this is what. Then the last question was asked was by our Arjuna, is how does a devotee leave his, how does he remember you at the time of death? This question he asked because Krishna in the last chapter, in the last verse, he says that one who knows me as Adhibhuta, Adhiyajna, Adhidaiva, he will remember me as the same when he is leaving his body. And such a person is a pure devotee. So one who knows something about a person, that he is the supreme controller, and he develops the faith and has the faith, and he follows the knowing is just not theoretical knowledge. Knowing is practical knowledge as well. So knowing and then behaving as one with the knowledge. So such a person will remember me at the time of death, he says. So again, Arjuna has a doubt. How does he remember? Can all devotees remember you? So this is one doubt that Arjuna has. Because devotees also have some physical problems, right? Because they have a material body and they are going to suffer. So we have seen people who suffer at the end of their life. They cannot even they are not aware of their suffering, of their surroundings. They wouldn't recognize anyone. So then how will they remember the Supreme Lord? They are so much in pain. How can they remember the Supreme Lord? So this is one question that Arjuna asked. How does a devotee remember a Supreme? With so much of anxiety, devotees also have anxiety. Na? It is just their outlook is different. But then if the body does not cooperate, then the devotees also, it will be difficult for them. So then here, that is why Prabhupada is mentioning here in the purport about Kulashekar Alvar. Where he says, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Adyaiva Me Vishatu Manasa Rajhamsaha Prana Prayana Samaye Kaphavata Pittaihi Kanthavarudana Vidhaush Smaranam Kudaste. So he is telling Prana Prayana Samaye, when I am dying at the time of death, Kaphavata Pittaihi Kanthavarudana Vidhau, my throat is choked with Kaphavata and Pitta. I am coughing like anything. How can I remember the Supreme Lord when I'm so much in pain and distress? Smaranam kudaste, he asks. So he says, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Pancharantam Adyaiva Me Vishatu. Now only let me Adya Eva, now only immediately, now when my senses are very strong, I have a strong body, let me enter your lotus feet. Let me take the shelter of your lotus feet at this very moment only. So he says that. Actually, even Ramanujacharya had this question to Kanchi Varadarajaswami. So when this question was posed by Ramanujacharya, in Bhagavad Gita, you're telling Antakales, at the time of death, you have to remember me. I have not yet come to that point because Krishna has not yet answered. He will answer in the 5th verse. I'll first tell that and then I will tell you this. So that is one question that our Arjuna is asking. How a devotee remembers the Supreme Lord. So for that, Lord Krishna is answering this very important verse 8.5. So Krishna says, Antakale cha mamiva smaran muktva kalevaram yahaprayati samadbhavam yadi astyatra samshayaha. So you see, Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva. So at the time of death, when one is quitting the body, mam eva, he should remember only me. Then yaha prayati samat bhavam yati na asti atra samshayava. He says at the end of life, when one quits his body, remembering me alone. He doesn't say remembering him and remembering something else also. He is not even giving that small concession also there. He's telling remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt, he says. Na astri samshaya. He says, Arjuna, you don't have any doubt. This is my promise. One who remembers me alone when he is quitting his body, he will attain the same nature as me. Now, what is the same nature as me means? The Lord, see, if we have to enter the spiritual, if we have to go to a sun planet, we have to have a body which is fit to withstand that heat, that amount of heat on the sun planet. We cannot go to the sun planet with this body. So similarly, if you have to go to the spiritual world, we have to have a body that is suitable for the spiritual world. We cannot live there with our material body. So that is why when Krishna says you'll attain my own nature, means we will get a spiritual body, which will not be suitable, which wouldn't be very appropriate to be here in the material world. It would be best to stay in the spiritual world with the spiritual body. Now, just like so, this is called, but we should not mistake that we are him when depending on when we read this verse. What he says, it's like we are also getting a body which is Satchidananda, just like the Supreme Lord's body, a body full of knowledge and bliss and eternal. It doesn't perish like the material body. Just like, but the similar nature in quality to Krishna's body. Just like in a mighty ocean, if you take one drop of water and analyze the chemical property of that drop of water, it contains sodium chloride. If you take buckets and buckets of the water from the mighty, but from that ocean also, it gives sodium chloride. But that one drop of water does not, it is no match to the mighty ocean, to the ocean. No? But still it is of the similar nature. So this is what the Lord says. So why it is so important to have that Krishna is telling you have to remember me only, remember him only at the time of death. What is Krishna's problem? Why can't we remember something else, somebody else? So this is a question. Then Krishna immediately says, Yam yam vapi sparan bhavam tyajante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sadatat bhava bhavitaha. Whatever one remembers at the time of death, whatever consciousness, in his next life, he will get the same kind of body. This is what, Krishna is telling here. Now, Antakale is one thing. I'll go back to the previous verse. Antakale smaran muktva. Now, in this particular verse, at the time of death is when one thing that Arjuna asks, and Krishna also answers. How many of us know when we are going to die? If we know that, then fine. This is very good. At the time, if at this moment, if I'm dying, I'm remembering Krishna, okay, I will get a spiritual body. But how many of us know that? How many of us, are Parikshit Maharaj was very fortunate soul. He had 7 days time. He was told in advance of 7 days that he is going to die. But not everyone is as fortunate as Parikshit Maharaj. So every moment is a moment of death. So every moment is so important that every moment we have to be remembering the Supreme Lord, because we don't know when is that time of death for us. So that is very important. Next is the same query was asked by Parikshit Maharaj to Shukadeva Goswami, because he had 7 days time. And Parikshit Maharaj asks, I'm going to die. I don't know what I have to do. So what am I supposed to do? And then he knows that death comes unannounced. And so he asks, not only for me, but for everyone else at all times, what they are supposed to do. Then the Lord says, you have to hear Krishna, you have to speak Krishna, you have to remember Krishna. I mean, Shukadeva Goswami says. So that is the only way. That is the only way to attain success. I mean, this janma, your birth as a human being is successful only when you are hearing, listening, remembering about Krishna at all times. So if this is what he says. So, and Prabhupada says in the purport that how do we remember Krishna? What is the easiest method to remember Krishna? Is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even Shukadeva Goswami says that Hari Ante Narayana Spritihi, he says, because at the end of why you have to keep hearing Krishna at all times, because at the Ante Narayana, at the end of your life, you will be remembering Krishna. And then Shukadeva Goswami also says that best is Hari Namanu Kirtanam. There also he says that chanting the holy name is the easiest process. Not that the others are other 8 processes of devotional services are not so beneficial. No, but the easiest one for Kali Yuga is chanting the holy name. Then yeah. So now we came to this. Then the Lord is telling that it is very dangerous if you don't remember me, because if you remember something else, then you will get a body of that. If I'm remembering a dog, then in my next body I'll have a dog's body. And a classic example of Bharat Maharaja, we all know that Bharat Maharaja was such a great devotee. Great devotee he was. Throughout his life, he practiced devotional service. He performed all his duties as prescribed by the Vedas, but then he kept Krishna in the center of his life. He was such a nice devotee, but towards the end of life, he became so affectionate to a deer that he actually sidelined bhakti, and then his mind was fully absorbed in the thoughts of the deer. And so in the next birth, he became a deer. So I heard somewhere that we have so many such deers in our life. So that deer, this deer, that deer, but we don't have dear Krishna. So we should have Krishna deer. So this is it. So yeah. So we have to remember Krishna. Anything else that we remember other than Krishna is actually very dangerous. It's not, because in the next life we don't know what we are going to become. So Krishna tells in Arjuna in the 7th verse, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyasya samshayah. So he says there is no doubt. Again here also he says, no doubt Krishna, if you are always remembering me and you do your duty. So he did not say you remember me and stop fighting. He says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Therefore, the danger of not remembering me will put you in, to remember something else. And you don't know what you are going to become in your next life. It is so dangerous. So therefore, at all times, you remember me and then you do your duty. You fight. Anusmara yudhyacha, he says. See, initially, Arjuna was not so matured enough to, Krishna could have told this in the beginning only, you remember me and fight. But then Arjuna was still in a very immature stage. First he gives knowledge to Arjuna, you are not the body or the spirit soul. And then he says, you have a body, therefore you have to fight. And then he says, you fight as a matter of duty. Then he says, you fight but offer the results to me. And then he says, you do your duty and you perform all your duties as an offerings to me. And then he comes here, he says, you remember me and then you fight. That means he is telling first, keep Krishna in the center, but do your duty. You cannot take devotional service as a route of escapism, not to perform your material duties. So it is, you have to remember Krishna and perform, and you have to fight. So he says you have to remember me at all times. My arpita manobuddhihi mami vaishya. He is telling, if you are dedicating your mind and intelligence to me, definitely you will achieve me. He says, and he says, na atra samshaya. Again, he says, there is no doubt. So he's promising so many times here that you should remember Krishna at all times. So what is it actually he is? And then how to remember Krishna at all times? Our mind is so fickle. How can Krishna be at all times in our mind? So again, Krishna says, Abhyasena, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, Chetasa Nanyagamina, Na Anyagamina. He says, don't allow your mind to go here and there. So he says, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, it is only by practice you will bring back the mind to me. Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanu Chintayan. He says, you fix your mind on that supreme personality, supreme Lord, Paramam Purusham. He doesn't say fix your mind on Brahman. he says, he doesn't say fix your mind on Paramatma also, but he says Paramam Purusham. So fix your mind on the Supreme Lord. So, yeah. So this is very important. He says you have to fix your mind. And so, Shri Radha Shyam Sundar Bhagwan ki jai, Radha Varinishwar Bhagwan ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki jai, Shri Gauri Nitai ki jai, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Narsadev Bhagwan ki jai. So, so it is actually basically what Krishna is telling. Always remember me, never forget me. This is what he is telling. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Smartavyaha satatam Vishnu vismartavya na jatuchit. This is in Padma Purana. Smartavyaha satatam Vishnu. Always you remember Vishnu. Vismartavya na jatuchit. Never you should forget Vishnu. Sarve vidhi nishedaha. All rules and prohibitions, so etayor eva kinkaraha, all the rules and prohibitions should become servants of this principle. So this is what is told in Padma Purana. That means whatever we perform according to the rules of the Vedic scriptures are for remembering the Supreme Lord ultimately. Whatever we don't perform is also for the remembrance of the Supreme Lord. It is not for our own sense gratification that the rules and regulations have been put in our Vedic scriptures. Now, when we say we follow the 4 rules and regulations, that is the no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. So when it is said no, 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 it is actually indirectly, we should remember it does not please the Lord if we do what has been told not to do. So it is for his pleasure, but I have to stop it. When he asks us to do something, that means he wants us to do it, makes him happy. So it is always for remembering Vishnu at all times and never forget Vishnu at any time. So this is how, and we have to practice. What is the practice? Prabhupada has given us 16 rounds of chanting. He has given us books in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He has translated so that everyone in whichever country they are able to get this nectar of spiritual knowledge. And so in this way, we are, and deity worship. So this is a practice that we are doing in Krishna consciousness only to remember. Next. Okay, so due to shortage of time, I have to stop here. No, Ramanujacharya actually had a set of questions to Varadaraj Swami, and one of the questions where he asked Bhagavad Gita, you told Antakale Smaran Mukva, but Antakale Chamami was Smaran Mukva Kalevaram, Yaprayati Samadbhavam Yadi. You said that, but there are so many devotees who have been doing your seva, and at the end of their life, if they are not able to remember you, well, the same question, so how can that principle apply what you have told in Bhagavad Gita? Then Varadaraja Swami says that if the devotee might not remember, but I remember him. Prabhuji, Krishna can do anything, right? If you are sincere, you might not be able to do that. Okay, multitasking. But he doesn't see for perfection. He just sees for your endeavor. So that is it. So if you are endeavoring, he will give you the capacity to do multitasking, to perform multitasks. So it's all depends upon our sincerity, Prabhu, at the end of the day. Nothing is impossible for Krishna. When he is promising, I think he will take care of that. It's just that we have to be sincere in our efforts and our intention. Hare Krishna, I hope that answers your question. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Mataji. So we'll continue this summary class again following week. So due to a shortage of time, now we have got another program, cultural program, the concluding cultural program of Gaur Purnima celebrations. So we request the devotees move to the as soon as JPS hall for our next program.